During our family vacation, my parents and sister locked my 8-year-old daughter in a suffocating hotel room. No food, no water, no air moving through that stifling heat, and left her there while they took their other grandchildren out on a luxury boat ride. Their excuse? There wasn't enough space on the boat. I didn't scream. I didn't break down. I did something far quieter, far worse. 60 minutes later, their world would start to unravel. It began right in the middle of my hospital shift. I'm a nurse, which means I'm used to unknown numbers flashing on my phone. They usually wait until my break. But something about this call, the same area code as the resort where my family was staying, hit me like a jolt. My gut told me to answer. "Is this Emma Mitchell?" the woman's voice asked, formal but strained. "Yes," I said, already uneasy. "I'm calling from the beachside hotel front desk. Your daughter is here and she'd like to speak with you." My stomach hollowed out. "Put her on." There was rustling. Then Sophie's voice, small, brave, trembling. "Mama." "I'm here." "What happened, sweetheart?" "They went on a boat. They locked the door." I froze mid-breath. "What do you mean, locked the door?" "They said I couldn't go. Grandma said I was naughty. They left. I couldn't get water. It's really hot." I forced my voice calm. "You're with the front desk now?" "Yes." "Good. Stay there, baby. Don't move." "I'm coming." I spoke again to the receptionist, who lowered her voice as if the air itself were guilty. She told us there's no food or water in the room. When housekeeping checked, it was very warm. "We'll keep her here until you arrive." "Thank you," I said, my tongue thick, tasting metal. Then I started calling. Mom, voicemail. Dad, voicemail. Karen. My sister, voicemail. I texted all 3. "Where are you? Why is Sophie alone? Call me." Finally, Karen picked up. Wind howled through the speaker, laughter behind her voice. "Hey, we're just boarding. Where is my daughter?" "She's at the hotel, she's fine. There wasn't enough room and she's only 8. Mom said she needs to learn boundaries. You locked her in a hot room with no water?" I said, my voice flat and sharp as glass. "She's exaggerating." "Relax, Em, you're being dramatic." Then she hung up. I grabbed my bag, told my charge nurse I had a family emergency, and was out the hospital doors before the elevator reached the ground floor. The 2-hour drive was a blur of white lines and what-ifs. Every mile added another layer of certainty. After today, nothing would ever be the same. When I walked into the hotel lobby, I saw her, my little girl, sitting in an oversized armchair, her feet not touching the floor, her face blotchy from crying. She jumped up and ran straight into me, her arms locked around my waist like she never wanted to let go. "You did everything right," I whispered into her hair. The receptionist gave me a soft nod. The kind people give when they've seen something unforgivable. "Thank you," I told her. I sat Sophie down beside me. "Did they say when they'd be back?" "They said later. They told me not to touch anything." I checked my phone. No missed calls, no texts. Then I opened my banking app, and my pulse stuttered. A pending charge, large enough to make my throat close. Not food, not snacks. The boat trip, the one my daughter wasn't even invited on. "Could you print the room's folio for me?" I asked the front desk. The receptionist glanced at her screen, hesitated, then nodded. While the printer hummed, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Stop overreacting." She was safe. Learn to control your child. Safe. Their definition of safe had always been warped beyond recognition. The receptionist slid the paper across the counter, each line a quiet accusation. The largest charge sat there mocking me. I didn't study it long. I didn't need to. I folded it neatly and slipped it into my bag like a piece of evidence. Sophie leaned against me, small and exhausted. Her eyes followed the hotel guests walking by with their sunburns and beach bags, laughing, carefree. "What are you doing, Mama?" she asked softly when I took out my phone. "Fixing it," I said. My fingers moved without hesitation. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to argue. Something colder had taken over, and somewhere, without anyone realizing it yet, the countdown had begun. If you'd asked me a week earlier, I would have said we were an ordinary family. Not perfect, who is, but ordinary enough. I grew up the younger of two girls. Karen was 4 years older, old enough that the gap always felt like a wall. My parents never said they only wanted one child, but sometimes I could feel it in the way they looked past me. I used to tell myself I imagined it, because how could you admit that your parents might not want you? So I made excuses. They're busy. They're tired. It's just because I'm younger. When they took Karen to movies I was too young for, or on trips I wasn't ready for, I told myself my time would come. But when you're older, never came. Still, I kept showing up, for birthdays, holidays, dinners. Because you only get one family, right? And I thought keeping the peace meant keeping love alive. Then I became a mother. A single one. Sophie's dad was never much more than a name on paperwork, so it was just us. Those early years were brutal. Nursing shifts at odd hours, bills that barely balanced. But I made it work. Eventually, life steadied. I earned a promotion, paid off debts, started breathing again. I built a cushion, a safety net. But when it came to Sophie, I never counted the cost. I wanted her to feel full, loved, safe. My parents knew that. They used it. Every time they offered to help. We'll take Sophie for the weekend. We'll pick her up from school. It came with strings. You'll cover her meals, right? You earn more than us. Always framed as logic. Never once said to Karen, the golden child. Her kids get gifts, surprise trips, the full grandparent experience. Sophie gets hand-me-downs and excuses, and every time I started to notice, I told myself I was imagining things. Until this trip. The family vacation was their idea. 2 hours away, beachfront hotel. They knew I couldn't take time off that week, but they insisted Sophie should still go. She'll get quality time with her cousins. I wanted to believe them. I gave them my card for expenses, thinking I was being responsible. Now, sitting in that icy lobby with Sophie curled against me, I saw the charge for the boat trip, extravagant, indulgent, and I finally understood. This wasn't new. It was a pattern stretching back decades. All those times I was too young, or there wasn't enough room, or maybe next time. The same excuses, now repackaged for my daughter. Only this time the price was paid in heat, fear, and a locked door. Something inside me went very still. No yelling, no tears, just clarity. This was the last day I'd pretend this was normal. So I made the call. The one I should have made years ago. The one that would change everything. I called the police. The dispatcher's voice was calm, professional. Tell me what happened. My 8-year-old was left locked in a hotel room in the heat with no food or water. The rest of the family went out for the day. We're in the lobby now. She took down the details, the room number, the hotel name, and said officers were on their way. We waited. Every minute stretched out thin. I could hear the hum of the air conditioner. Sophie's soft breathing. My heartbeat ticking time. Then the doors opened, and 2 officers stepped in. No sirens, no drama, just quiet authority. The room seemed to tilt as everyone turned to look. I stood. I'm the one who called. They asked what happened. I told them plainly, every word measured. Sophie's 8. She was locked in that room for hours in the heat. No food, no water. The rest of the family went on a boat ride. The older officer turned to the receptionist. Housekeeping found her alone, she confirmed. She asked to call her mom. We brought her down here. Hearing someone else say it, state it like a fact, hit harder than I expected. My throat tightened. It wasn't just my story anymore, it was evidence. Then I showed them my phone with the pending charge for the boat trip. They paid for this with my card. I said she wasn't even there. One officer raised an eyebrow. And the others, where are they now? On the boat, I said. They should be back soon. They decided to wait. We sat there, me and Sophie on the lobby couch. 2 officers posted near the entrance. I felt strangely calm, not happy, not relieved, but calm in the way you get when there's nothing left to hide and no way for them to pretend it didn't happen. About 40 minutes later, they walked in. My mom first, then my dad, then Karen with her kids in tow, sunburned, sunglasses perched on their heads, still smelling like salt water and sunscreen. The laughter died instantly when they saw the uniforms. Can we help you? My mom asked the officers, her tone pure. I'm the one in charge here. Were you the guardians responsible for Sophie Mitchell today? Yes, she said. but we need to ask you some questions about why she was found unsupervised. Karen cut in before my mom could finish. She was fine. It was only a few hours. She was locked in a room without food or water, I said, my voice flat. It was hot. My dad shrugged. It wasn't that hot. The younger officer glanced at Sophie, then back to them. Would you leave your own children like that? Karen didn't even hesitate. Of course not. We'd never do that to our kids. The silence that followed was heavy enough to touch. I looked straight at her. So you admit you treat my daughter differently? Karen rolled her eyes. She's spoiled. Our kids know how to behave. That was it. You could see the shift in the officer's posture. That small invisible line they'd been waiting to see crossed. Ani stepped away, radio in hand. I didn't hear every word, but I caught enough. CPS and protective custody. My mom's head snapped toward him. What is this about? Ma'am, the older officer said. We'll need you to wait here while we coordinate with Child Protective Services. Karen scoffed loud enough for the whole lobby. This is ridiculous. Overreact much? The younger officer didn't even look at her. Please take a seat. Sophie pressed herself into my side. I kept my hand on her shoulder. My eyes on the sliding glass doors at the front of the lobby. I wasn't sure what exactly was coming next, but I knew it wasn't going to be the quiet, polite wrap-up they were expecting. The radio call ended. The officer came back, murmured something to his partner, and both of them moved to stand between my family and the exit. My mom opened her mouth to argue again, but the older officer's voice was calm steel. You need to remain here until CPS arrives. This is non-negotiable. Karen folded her arms and leaned back in the chair like she was the one inconvenienced. My dad kept muttering under his breath, but I didn't bother to catch the words. I glanced at the reception desk. The woman there was arranging a stack of brochures, pretending not to listen, but her eyes kept flicking toward Sophie. If she had an opinion about what was happening, and I was sure she did, she was too professional to say it. Sophie whispered, Are we going to leave soon? Yes, I said. We are. Karen started up again. She's fine. She wasn't in danger. We do this all the time. The younger officer cut her off. You leave your own children in locked rooms all the time? Karen froze. My mom jumped and flustered. No, not ours. Just mine, I said. No one answered that. The lobby doors slid open, and 3 CPS workers walked in with clipboards in hand. For a second, nobody moved. The officers straightened a little. My mom's mouth fell open mid-sentence, and Karen sat forward like she'd been hit with a bucket of cold water. The only sound was the whoosh of the air conditioning. It stayed where I was on the couch. Sophie pressed against my side, watching. The workers introduced themselves, their voices calm, steady, professional. The kind of voices you want when everything else is falling apart. Then they split, one toward me, the other 2 straight to me family. I didn't hear every word, but Karen wasn't exactly whispering. Her voice carried across the lobby, sharp and desperate. She's fine. She wasn't in danger. We do this all the time. The younger officer I'd been watching earlier cut in. His tone clipped. You leave your own children in locked rooms all the time? Karen stammered. No, not them. Just mine, I said again. Not loudly, but loud enough. No one answered. The CPS worker near me crouched down so she was eye level with Sophie. Hi, sweetheart. I'm Dana. You're safe now. You did the right thing by telling someone. Sophie looked up at me, waiting for my nod before she said anything. I nodded. Then Dana straightened and turned to me. Thank you for calling this in. We're going to make sure every child here is safe. It should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like my stomach dropped through the floor because as furious as I was, as betrayed as I felt, this was still my family. Watching strangers take over felt surreal, like I'd been living in a bad dream and had just now realized I wasn't going to wake up. Across the room, one of the other workers, a tall man with glasses, was speaking firmly, "Tommy, Mom." She was trying every line she'd used on me my entire life. She was fine. You're overreacting. This is ridiculous. Except this time nobody was nodding along. Then came the words that silenced the room. We're placing these children in protective custody. Karen shot to her feet. You can't just take my kids. But they could, and they did. The workers gathered Karen's kids, speaking softly to them, while Karen's voice broke into tears and shouts. My dad muttered, something about family sticking together, but his voice sounded small for the first time in my life. The kids were led toward the door, backpacks dangling from their shoulders, still sniffling. I didn't move. Sophie didn't move. We just watched them go. And as awful as it was to see, I also knew. This was the first time anyone had ever told my family no. The hotel manager appeared not long after. He didn't look angry, just done. Your booking is terminated, he told my parents and Karen. We don't allow child endangerment on our property. Karen sputtered. You can't. It's already arranged. Staff will help you collect your belongings. Minutes later, I watched as bellmen carried their suitcases down one by one, under police supervision. The bags landed on the floor with dull thuds, the sound of endings. Guests whispered behind their hands, staring. My mom's cheeks burned red, and for once she had no words. One of the officers came over to me quietly. We'll need to keep those receipts and charges you showed us. They'll be entered into the report. I handed them over. He lowered his voice even more. There may be fraud charges. We'll see what the DA wants to do. I nodded. Understood. And then I did the own thing I hadn't been able to do all day. I walked out of there with my daughter. The next morning, my phone rang. Karen. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. You evil. You got my kids taken away. She screamed before I could say hello. No, Karen, I said evenly. You got your kids taken away when you left. Mine locked in a hotel room with no food or water. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I said and hung up. The calls didn't stop. First my mom, then my aunt, then cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Some were furious, some just fishing for gossip, but I gave the same answer every time. They left Sophie locked in a room. CPS got involved. That's it. And most of them, after a beat, said, oh, because there's not much you can argue with after that. By evening, I saw the Facebook post. Karen had dug up a picture of her and the kids on some picnic and wrote about being betrayed by family and losing everything because of lies. The comments started off sympathetic, but it didn't take long. Someone I still don't know who wrote, "Didn't you leave your niece alone in a hotel room?" After that, the tide turned fast. People she thought would defend her didn't. By the time I clicked away, it was a pillion. I should have felt satisfied. Instead, I felt tired. About a week later, the call came again. This time, Karen's voice was different, frantic. Mark has the kids. CPS released them to him, and now he's filing for full custody. Do you understand? I'm going to lose them. I closed my eyes. He's their father. Where else did you think they'd go? They were supposed to come back to me, she cried. Now they're saying I might only get visitation. You need to talk to your lawyer, I said quietly. She kept ranting, blaming me, blaming CPS, blaming everyone but herself. I let her talk until I couldn't anymore. Karen, you treated my daughter like she didn't matter. This is what happens when you do that. She sobbed something I couldn't make out and hung up. It's been 6 months now. The custody case isn't fully finalized, but Karen's kids are living with their dad. What used to be a neat 50-50 split after the divorce is now him as the primary parent and her seeing them when the court allows it. At first, I thought maybe it was just CPS's recommendation carrying weight in court. Then came the part I didn't see coming. Sophie came home from school one afternoon and said almost casually, I saw Anna and Luke today. They said they live with their dad now. They told me they wanted to. That stopped me cold. It wasn't just the system or their dad pushing for custody. The kids themselves had said it. They told Sophie straight out that what happened at the hotel was messed up, their exact words. And that after it, they didn't want to live with their mom and grandparents anymore. Hearing it from them through Sophie at school of all places felt like the ground shifting under me. For years, I thought I was the only one who saw the cracks, the only one who felt left out and less than. Turns out even the Golden children saw it once the mask slipped. The money part ended up settling itself too. I filed a dispute with my bank and the charges were reversed. From what I heard later, the hotel turned around and billed my parents and Karen directly. For once, they had to pay for their own luxury, not me. I've gone completely no contact with them. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I can't let Sophie grow up thinking neglect and favoritism are just part of family life. I excused it for too long. I won't let her do the same. And here's the strange part. I feel lighter, happier. Like I finally put down something I didn't realize I'd been dragging around since childhood. The wider family mostly sided with me, aunts, cousins, even the older generation. Once the story came out, people admitted they'd noticed it too. The favoritism, the little digs, the way Karen and her kids were always held above everyone else. Suddenly I wasn't the sensitive one anymore. My parents and Karen are the outsiders now. Do I feel sad? Sometimes it's hard to admit your own parents can't be trusted with your child. But then I look at Sophie, she's thriving. She laughs more. She's free of that constant comparison I grew up under. But what do you think? Did ego too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments.